Chapter 2. Meeting a long-lost friend. My mind empties. The room is a flurry of motion, but I'm just observing now. A switch has shut off inside me, and even though I'm not thinking, I'm sort of aware of the peripheral sense that I'm having a strange reaction. Something in me that's long been buried, racing to the surface of my mind. I am excited and scared, but mostly scared. Erik is wearing blue jeans, a light blue chambra shirt, and polished brown boots. He walks by the officer's desk, and then literally hops down the stairs as if he has no cares. I quickly move to table 24, as he is making his way through the room. He pauses at one point, surveys the room, then he sees me. His whole body lightens, and I forget that I am meeting an infamous prisoner. He hands a small card to the desk officer, and begins walking towards me. His gait is determined, but not precise, and he's taller and leaner than I expected. He looks as he did during the trial. Although his hair is slightly receding at the edges and his eyes are a bright blue that could not have been seen through a television set. "Tammy," he says. "Hi, Erik. Wow, it's so good to finally meet you." He pauses for a moment to gaze down at me. Then his arms are around me. He tightly embraces me. I'm squeezed against him. I close my eyes and give in to the hug. But it is not something I'm ready to accept. My heart is pounding with nervousness. He pulls back. There's a smile in his eyes. I meet his gaze. I feel no romantic sparks, no crazy love at first sight, no sexual flashes, nothing. This man is very cute, but I feel nothing specific. If something is happening between us, I'm not aware of it. None of this seems normal, but then neither is it normal to meet a man for the first time with whom I can say I'm already good friends with. Finally, Erik says, "I've been waiting a very long time for this moment." He says this, and without waiting for a response, seats me at our table. There's a crowd around us, but it's like he doesn't see it. Erik is a very focused person, I will learn. And at the moment, he has a visitor. I'm not sure what Erik is thinking because he's asking me a lot of questions about my trip. Have I had any problems? Do I like to fly? Am I okay at my hotel? What's Minnesota like? Was I scared to enter the prison? And so on. If he was only focused on himself, this might not have been a problem. But he's trying to engage me. Finally, he blurts out, "I want to know everything." I respond, "Everything? We don't have that kind of time. Maybe if you just start with an easy question." With a friendly look to him, he goes on to ask about my dreams and fears. An unsettling pain breezes through me, a ghost from the past, and I veto nearly all of his questions. I decide to ask my own questions. I ask about his likes and dislikes, and then it suddenly comes out, the question I should have enough compassion and wisdom to avoid. "Is there any hope for you to get out of prison?" He is surprised at first, then answers, "I don't know. I'd like to win my appeal, obviously, but I dread going back to trial." "Were your trials that bad?" He nods. "For a while, I thought hell wasn't a place of fire and brimstone, but eternal retrials. I don't like what it did to my whole family. It was a way of extending their pain and magnifying it. And it wasn't just my family. Trials meant daily accusations and spins, people trying to describe your life and experiences and making things up as they went. Testifying, that was the worst. I didn't want to talk about my life or my childhood or those final days. I hated it. A part of me wishes I never spoke of any of it." I'm not sure what I expected to hear from him. His letters were always direct, but listening to him in person was like the difference between watching a sporting event on television and playing in the game. And he didn't refuse to answer a single question I put to him. At one point I asked, "Did the media get to you?" Nothing scared me worse than a microphone and cameras. And then looking at 12 people who would judge your whole life, I was terrified. Although I hadn't answered the question when he asked it, I wanted to know what a life sentenced inmate imagines, if they still have an imagination. "So what are your dreams?" I ask. It's the first question he needs to consider. My dreams have changed over the years, I guess. I used to want a family, my white picket fence in the country, a slow, quiet life, raising a little girl, a wife who's my best friend, he sighs, and then smiles. Eventually, the smile reaches his eyes. Now, I just settle for peace. I say nothing. I stare at him for a moment, and then look down and away. Peace. It's like he's opened up and read my soul. Maybe that's why I've come so far to see him, why I ever would have written that first letter, or at least why I would have kept writing. He's also in pain. "Would you like to walk with me for a bit?" he asked. He rises and pulls out my chair as I stand. I smile at this, but I don't comment on it. He reaches for my hand again. hesitates, and then pulls back. I pretend not to notice. I can almost feel his desire to get close to me, and the conflict and uncertainty it creates within him. As we circle the room, occasionally weaving through the crowd, I see families who are linked together in prayer, various prisoners who appear to be fathers bouncing children on their knees, and one couple that stands out from the rest. The prisoner is holding a woman who is in tears. He is stroking her hair. Erik notices me looking at them. He comments, "The guy is being transferred to another prison. It's over 300 miles away. His wife works in Sacramento. She can't afford to move." I avert my eyes as we pass their table. Her sorrow is palpable and feels like a cold shower. Erik and I walk in silence. I ask, "If she lives here, why are they moving him?" Keeping families together is not one of the prison system's priorities. Honestly, sometimes it feels like they do it on purpose. It sounds crazy, I know, but what else can I think? Do you know him? Not really. I just know he's super depressed. I heard about his transfer and every day since I can see in his eyes what he's going through. It doesn't take any special power of perception. He won't make it without his wife, I'm afraid. He'll commit suicide, or worse, do something stupid to get himself killed. Some guys literally crumble when these things happen. We walk in silence, and after a while, he switches the subject back to me. Do I like animals? I like animals. Do I swim? What are my hobbies? Do I believe in a higher power? With Erik, subject shifts like currents of the wind. He prods with gentle questions, never pulling or demanding. I feel at peace here. With this man, convicted of the worst kind of violence, safe at his side, even as I walk through a crowd of violent criminals, many of whom have lives defined by grotesque acts. It turns out that Erik has educated himself during his last 8 years of incarceration. He speaks of the LA County Jail, where he lived for 6.5 years during his 2 trials, as a dramatic, sometimes brutal training ground for prison. Neither Erik nor his brother were kept in isolation from other prisoners. The jailer's policy was to integrate them. These experiences never made it to the media. Erik also used those years to confront the reasons this tragedy occurred, the horrible pain it caused for his family, and to re-experience and fully come to terms with many terrible events of his childhood, many of which continued during his teenage years, but which he buried within himself in ever more self-destructive ways. After 6 years of intense therapy and re-education, including college texts and courses, Erik emerged from the county jail, put back together like Humpty Dumpty, but suddenly needing to forge a life for himself within one of the nation's toughest prison systems. His college education was focused in astronomy, science, and history, subjects that will ordinarily bore me into unconsciousness if discussed in depth. But during our first meeting, he dips into the subjects casually, teaching subtly by references only when the conversation calls for it. Erik's last home was a $4 million mansion in the rarefied atmosphere of Beverly Hills. His current home is a small cell in a forgotten prison in a city that can't even be found on a map. It surprises me that he still holds a relatively healthy, optimistic view of life, with an interest in politics and current events. I've gathered this from his many letters, but I can only make sense of his enthusiasm by knowing that he has a deeply rooted belief in God and the soul. He invites me to have breakfast at one of the vending machines. When I remind him that I need my plastic purse from the table, he clasps my hands, intertwines his fingers between mine, and guides me through the traffic of visitors. I smile to myself. Mention food and he becomes bold. I pretend that it's completely natural for me to hold the hand of a friend. The rules of the visiting room are simple. People are allowed to briefly embrace or kiss when they arrive or leave their visit. Otherwise, only hand-holding is permitted. The chaperones at the front desk keep a watchful eye, along with several security cameras. The room is like Fort Knox. The vending machines offer sodas, known as pop if you're from Minnesota, frozen burritos, sandwiches, and mystery food. There is an outdated microwave to heat the food, nothing fancy or complicated, yet Erik assures me that the tasteless poison of prison food makes the vending machine seem like gourmet offerings. There's a black line around the vending machine he's not supposed to cross. He's never allowed to handle money or use the microwave. This means I get to purchase the food, carry the food to the microwave, and prepare the food. How convenient. The rules were obviously made by man. I buy him a burrito and an orange juice. I pick the salad, I heat the food, and he carries it all to our table. I tell him a little bit about my years in Hibbing, Minnesota. When I talk, he becomes completely silent, as if hanging on to every word. At one point, I tell him he reminds me of my friend, CB, The way he listens to me. CB's your French bulldog, right? I'm impressed that he remembers. Yes. You know, if he was a Great Dane, I might see that as more of a compliment. When I first sent you a picture of CB, you wrote back and asked why I was sending you pictures of an ugly dog. You know CB is cute. Adorable, he says. I give him a look. Try as he might, he can't resist a smile. Look, he says. I was teasing you. The little guy is so cute. He's almost ugly. It's unfair to other dogs. I stare at him. Okay, I'm sorry, he says, reining himself in. Pretty stupid to tease a girl about her dog. Little does he know, everybody teases me about CB. Can you send me another picture of him? Erik asked. I'll write him an apology. His words are soft yet firm. His gaze meets mine. For the briefest moment, the exchange is compellingly intimate. His look burns through me. I swallow. How can this guy affect me like this? What is going on? What's perplexing is that I honestly don't feel romantically inclined towards him. Maybe it's the unattainable prison thing. What I do feel, and this is far weirder, is unusually comfortable with him. I am normally cold, shy, almost closed when I meet men. With Erik, it's like we're picking up on a dialogue from where we left off at an entirely different time. I'm fairly sure he likes me. He's going to be disappointed. Prisoners aren't my thing. Frankly, the whole prison romance thing is a bit bizarre. But I do feel a close connection to him. I feel like I have known him forever. My heart says, he likes you, run. A deeper part of me says, this is your close friend, stay. The feeling is very real, but of course, hard to accept. A friend, surely, but close friend, or potential best friend, hardly. As we talk, it dawns on me that this visiting room is the only place where free society interacts with the highly controlled prison environment. Here, tears and laughter, conversation and prayer blend into a chorus. It's beautiful in a way, and I recognize that while the room may be occupied by flawed men with blemished histories, the pettiness of free men never finds itself in this room. Laughter has broken out from a group of visitors ahead of us. They have the look of family, generations, grandparents, parents, and a young child. I've been watching them with curiosity. As they talk and joke, it's a huge contrast to the mood down at processing, where a tenseness lingers. With certain exceptions, the people here seem almost cheerful and energetic. It's hard to imagine the pain that they endure year after year. As I'm taking stock of my surroundings and carrying a conversation with Erik, I feel his left hand briefly resting on my knee. I glance down and consider slapping it away. I'm very big on private space. I don't like close talkers or knee touchers. His hand has just touched my knee, and then, just as quickly, it's gone. He continues to talk, but recognizes that he's just jolted me. It's then that I realize there was nothing sexual in the act. I recall that during the visit, he's touched my arm periodically too. He'll touch my arms when they're crossed, my knee, and hold my hand, but he doesn't try to be more intimate than that. Erik likes me, there's no doubt about it. But what I'm trying to figure out is, will he be able to just be friends? I hope so. One of the striking aspects to our visit is how Erik is nothing like what the media portrayed him to be. It's as if I'm visiting a different person. He's exactly how he portrays himself in his letters to me. He never criticizes or speaks ill of anyone, and he genuinely likes people. I ask myself for a moment, where's all the hatred and anger and scariness I'm supposed to see in Erik Menendez? Where's the violent man that must be spirited behind bars to protect the general public? The truth is, I've never met anyone remotely like him. I'm not suggesting that he's become some wonderful human being. I'm not suggesting he isn't. I don't know him well enough yet. I'm merely saying that many people who've never met Erik view him as a dark soul, a murderer, and to spend a half hour with him is to be struck by how radically different he is from that view. At 2 p.m. visiting is over. I'm supposed to leave now, but I don't want to leave. An unfamiliar pain creeps into me. I'm going to walk out of the prison, and Erik is going to return to his cell. It's an awful thought. I reject it immediately and push it away. Around us, families are hugging, couples are kissing goodbye, some are crying. A tangible shift in emotion from joy to sadness pulses through the room. Little children are clinging to the prisoners as the table beside us like koala bears. I look up into Erik's eyes. He wraps his arms around me, and once again, for reasons I don't entirely understand, I let him have his contact without objection or denial. I'm suddenly very heavy-hearted, unusually inept at goodbyes. I don't know what to say for several minutes. A flood of emotion washes over me and has no place to go. I push away, stand up, and say goodbye. I look at him one last time. The guards are insisting we all leave. There's nothing I can do but to turn away. I do not look back at Erik. I don't want the memory of him standing there alone burned into my mind.